Yes.
So
we're tasked with defining leadership.
Yes, it seems quite important actually when working within a leadership course to have sort of a common ground, a common understanding on what leadership really is. How can we understand the concept of leadership? So let's start off by trying to define what leadership is.
Yes. Not necessarily an easy task.
Actually, it is quite hard to define leadership. It really depends on who you ask. A wise person once said that there are about as many definitions on leadership as there are persons who has attempted to define it. And that's quite interesting. Why is it so, do you think, David?
Well, actually, it's something that has been tried from a lot of different academic angles or different topic areas. So a psychologist might define leadership in one way, whilst a management expert or a governance researcher will find other answers for the question, what is leadership?
So answering the question, what is leadership, is not all that easy. But as we will try to show you, there are, of course, there is a way to define leadership which is sort of agreed upon also between these various of academic fields. But I will also say that it becomes even more hard if we try to answer the question, what is good leadership?
Yes.
And the answer to that question, I would say, is only one. It depends. It depends on who you are, and it will depend on who you are leading, what type of organization you are in, and what state this particular organization is in. Are you in an ongoing crisis, for instance? Then the answer, what is good leadership, is one. Are you leading a sort of a success organization with vast resources and everything is working really well? Everyone is motivated and happy. Then the answer to the question, what is good leadership, will be somewhat different. So that's really the only answer to the question, what is good leadership? It depends. And I think also something that makes sometimes the issue harder is that you need to make a difference between being a leader and being a manager. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes. So one way of defining the differences is that a manager is a formal position within an organization. You have a delegated power from the managers above you that gives you this role of being a manager, whilst a leader is much more of an informal role, something that is within the relationship between the leader and the one that follows the leader, I would say. Yeah.
So you can actually be a manager without being a leader.
Yes, you can be a manager without being a leader. You will not be a successful manager, I would say. Any kind of management position will need leadership to succeed.
Yeah.
But you can get the management position, you can have that formal role without necessarily being able to lead or having the competencies or the qualifications from the people that you lead that can give you that role of a leader when they take the role of a follower.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And another way of looking at it is also that someone else can be the leader, not necessarily the manager. and then we are talking about something that you define as informal leadership, and this can potentially be really good.
Yes,
it can be very helpful, but it can also be, of course, an obstacle. If the informal leadership is working in another direction than the strategy of the organization, for instance. But let's look at some sort of classic definitions on leadership, and I think we can start off with a real classic. The leadership guru Peter Drucker, an American researcher, he once wrote that the only definition of a leader is someone who has followers. So followers are really a part of the leadership definition. Without followers, you will not have any type of leadership in place. And by looking at this definition, we can also conclude that the element of followership, looking at the followers and the followers' responsibility and the followers' part of the leadership equation, is very important, and something that we will definitely look on in other parts of this course that you are partaking in. So something you would like to comment there, David, on the element of followership?
Yeah, it's a mutual relationship, I would say.
Yeah.
It's something that we develop together, and there are also competencies to being a good follower. Yeah. We often focus a lot on good leadership and the competencies of good leadership and skills of good leaders, but without the skills of good followers, it becomes very hard to lead, no matter the skill set of the leader.
Yeah. Another definition of leadership is this one. Leadership is about the direct contact between the leader and the co-workers, and it addresses the process in which a person influences others to achieve established goals. And this can be compared with the next definition, which I would say is definitely the most accepted definition within academia today. Northouse. Leadership is a process whereby an individual influences a group of individuals to achieve a common goal. So this is perhaps a simple definition, but just by looking at the different elements of the definition will give you actually quite a good guideline to understand the concept of leadership, I would say. The part of influencing others. Well, definitely there are different ways to influence other people. And also the importance of establishing a common ground with the common goal. That it's absolutely clear within the group where we are going, what we are working towards.
There's a lot of modern research that supports this definition in terms of the goal part. It's good for collaboration, cooperation, team development. It's good for the followership role. It's good for the leadership role, and the management role are all supported by having these clear and common goals. So if we need to focus on something as leaders, why not start off with, do we have a common goal?
Yeah.
Do we have something that I need to influence this group to reach?
Yeah. So that's going from a sort of the most accepted definition of leadership. I would also say that this definition of leadership adds components to the understanding of leadership. Leadership is best seen as a way of thinking, a state of mind, or even as a way to be. Like I said previously, good leadership will depend on who you are. So you really, as a leader, you need to look within. And the outcome, when we look at leadership in practice, the outcome, the actual leadership will be your answer to the following questions. Who are you? What is it that you want? What is your personal vision as a leader? Your take on where you are, what type of organization you are in. Your answer to the question, why am I here? Why do I work within this organization? Your understanding of the common goal as an individual leader, and your take on who is it that I lead? And how do you define leadership? I think that would be a great outcome of this course if you could sit where me and David are sitting right now and sort of give a lecture on what is good leadership. Hopefully this course will land in that you have an idea on what you think is good leadership. And these questions that we just went through, I think they're sort of easy questions. And I would say that having worked with managers for almost 25 years now, I found that these are really good sort of tutorial questions when working with individual managers. Working with each of these questions will often help them forward. So, the key question in leadership is how?
How do I do it? How do I get followers?
And how do I want people to follow me? And there are, as we stated earlier, different ways to get followers. These are some random pictures from the internet trying to illustrate that there are definitely different ways to get followers. If you look to the top left picture, that is sort of getting followers by the use of threat. If you don't do what I say, I will spank you, or I will kill you. That is sort of an easy way to get followers, of course. And there are definitely situations where this type of leadership may be necessary, to sort of threat people to do what you need them to do. If there's an extreme time pressure, for instance, or if there is an actual threat of danger, you will need to get followers really, really fast.
If the house is on fire, we can't have a discussion and form a democratic process around whether we should leave the house or not. Someone needs to take command and say, we need to leave this area right now.
Yeah. Or I will try to mentor you to understand that you need to leave the room, or I try to coach you
into leaving the burning house. No.
In other situations, of course, this type of leadership is very destructive, and we can get our role models from other areas. For instance, leading by example, leading as a coach, or as perhaps a theater director, or as old Socrates, leading by asking questions and not having the answer yourself. Leading by telling people where to go, or taking them by the hand and lead them to the source of knowledge. But you need to make the choice, depending on the current situation. You choose which type of leader you want to be and what the situation demands. And a way of naming this is by saying that this is actually conscious leadership. Leadership adapted to the current situation. So, it's hard to define leadership, but there are some things that we actually know about leadership.
Yes. Common themes or threads, aspects or phenomena that tend to show up in a lot of different leadership research. One of the things that we do know is the way we started this talk, that there actually is no universal leadership model. There's no way of leading that will work in every situation. So any leadership needs to adapt to the situation that you're in.
Yeah. So leadership is a situation-dependent phenomenon, and it is an influential process towards achieving a goal.
And I would like also to stop on the word process there.
Yeah.
It's not static. It's not something where we establish that you're the leader, I'm the follower, and that's the way it's going to be from now on. It's a continual process where I follow you as long as I deem you worthy of following. So you need to make continual investments. And so I think that also goes back to the difference between manager and leader. Even though I've gotten this position of a manager, we're not done yet.
No.
It's still a process of leading and following.
Yeah.
So that process word is actually very important.
Yeah. And that the leader and the follower has a responsibility within this process.
Mm-hmm.
Very important. Another point, nobody is born a leader. Might surprise some of you, but this is actually shown in research. Leadership is definitely something you can learn and train. Definitely we can be born with certain qualities that will help us in different types of different situations, but no one is sort of born a universal leader that can handle all type of situation. We will be good in different types of situations, but we can learn and train our ability to adapt to different situations.
And that's also something that we, having done this for a total of 40-45 years together, together sometimes and sometimes apart, but training managers and leaders, we could speak from this from experience. That we have seen people who didn't think themselves perhaps that they were leaders develop the skills and competencies they need to lead other people.
And leadership can be done both directly and indirectly. So as a leader, you don't always have to be sort of in the spotlight and tell people what to do. You can also work more as creating a situation, creating an atmosphere, an environment in which things are happening sort of by themselves. Mm-hmm. So your work has sort of been done by creating the environment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Setting up frameworks, rules to work by, methods and so on and so on. Creating a common framework for people to work within, and then you don't have to be there for the work to get done. And leadership is a collective process that involves and can be shared between several different actors. So it's not necessarily bound to one person. Both in, I would say, literature, storytelling, the media, drama, and so on, we often tend to want to see the leader, one leader, that is both responsible when we succeed for all the success, and is also responsible if we fail for the whole failure. And in reality, leadership is something that is divided between several people in a group, and it could be within one meeting that leadership goes between different people. The one that does the social influencing towards the common goal in this moment, and that other people follow in that moment.
Yeah, and in that sense, it's perhaps better not to talk about co-workers, but rather say co-leaders.
Mm-hmm.
So that is perhaps something to think about as a follower. That being a good follower means sometimes that you step into the role of the leader. Leadership is far too important to leave to managers alone. Leadership behaviors focus on tasks or relationships, and as David said previously, that's an important aspect of being a leader, to really spend time on building working relationships.
And that's also a good reflection question for anyone assuming a management role or aspiring to be a leader in any sense. It is, where do I tend to focus? Do I tend in most situations to focus on the tasks, the outcomes, the structures, or do I tend to focus on the relationships, the people, the communication, the thing that's happening between us? And just having that insight can help you create an atmosphere where you can get help with the things that you're not as comfortable with, or that isn't your preference necessarily, so that you can focus on something that you're good at. But all teams, all organizations needs both. I would say we need both a task orientation. We need to know what to do, the common goal, what we want to achieve, but we also need working relationships to make that happen. Without those working relationships, we will get nowhere.
No. Leadership involves both change and managing tasks and personnel. And leadership as a phenomenon is colored by the prevailing time, spirit, and discourse. And that last final point is of course important, and something that you of course need to bear in mind is that we're sitting here in Sweden with our discourse, our prevailing time and spirit, which may not be exactly the same as the situation that you are within. And this will definitely define also leadership and what is good leadership.